Good morning, everyone. Hopefully this is going to be the best day of your life, just like the song that was just on. I know it's going to be the best day of my life, so I'm excited. We see a few people still kind of jumping on, but we're going to get going here. So hopefully everybody else that's wanting to join will get on soon. So excited to be with you guys today. I'm actually in our Centerville office today. We've got the manager that's out of the office today, so I'm down here to help out with the agents if they need anything throughout the day today. So I'm coming to you from the training room in the Centerville office, which nobody else is in here but just me. So you guys on Zoom got to ask questions, participate, and be involved. So I am going to go ahead and mute everyone, but I'm going to leave it to where you can hopefully you should be able to unmute yourself, but I'm hearing a bunch of background noise. So I'm going to get that muted. All right. So let me kind of give you an idea of what we're going to do today. So the idea of today is to go through and get you started on using your Zap account. And so I want to give you the background on Zap so that you understand that piece of it as we get going. Now, what happened is, just kind of so you know the background of this Zap system and where it came from and all those things, is there were these guys that were working on their PhD thesis. And part of what they had decided to do as part of this PhD thesis was they needed to create a business. And this business that they decided to create was, they decided they wanted to create a website that would generate internet leads, that they could then get those leads and nurture or mature them, however you want to call that, to turn those leads into transactions, basically. Well, these guys were not real estate guys. So they didn't really have a knowledge of how real estate per se works, but they were wanting to start this business. So they go create this website. And in the process of that, the name of the website that they came up with was Zip Realty. And you may or may not have heard of Zip Realty, but these guys created this website and it worked actually really well at generating leads for them. And so they created this website that generated a whole bunch of leads. And then what happened was, though, the problem is that they had is they were not real estate guys. And so they grew this company, but they didn't really know how to convert those leads into transactions. Now, I say that, but in actuality, I mean, if they were standing here with me, they would probably argue with me that we did a great job with it. And you'll know why I say that in just a minute. But the truth was, they weren't really that good at training the agents how to then go and turn those into transactions, and actually even taking the leads and getting them as an appointment and those type of things. So anyway, they grew the company though, and so it grew across many parts of the major cities across the US. They had offices for Zip Realty because they were generating these leads all across the country. Well, Realogy, who is the people that own Century 21, so nationwide or worldwide, I guess, Realogy is who owns Century 21. And they went to these guys and they said, we want to buy your company. And they weren't really necessarily wanting to buy the website, ziprealty.com, although that still exists, ziprealty.com, and it is owned by Realogy. But really what they were wanting to buy was the back-end system that Zip Realty was using. And that back-end system was called Zap. So they went and paid $167 million to purchase Zip Realty. So not bad. So like when I say they didn't really know what they were doing, I mean, they knew enough, I guess, to sell their company for $167 million to Realogy, which, you know, not so bad. But here's the point. What Realogy was really purchasing was the Zap system. So even though, like I said, Realogy still owns the domain ziprealty.com, and people go there and search and look for properties still to this day, but really what they were purchasing was the Zap system that they could then implement with us as Century 21 agents. So with that background, now what I'm going to do is take you into the system and show you basically why they were willing to pay $167 million for this system. So let me get my screen shared up here. So let me get this pulled up here. Here it is. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing my screen on there. If not, I guess you can let me know, but I'm assuming that it is because I generally don't have a problem with it. So this is what it looks like. So now let me first explain to you how you even get here. The way that you're going to get here, there's two different ways you can go about it. In fact, I'll just actually even pull up and show you the one. So one way is to go to 21 Online, and then once you're at 21 Online, you're going to sign in. It'll ask for your username and password, which hopefully you all have. If not, you can call the help desk, which has the phone number right down there at the bottom when you're on the page down here. But once you get to here, you could either type in Zap in this search bar up here. The way I usually do it is just go to the Productivity Hub, which we talked about this on Tuesday if you were in class. And if you come down here, you can click Access Zap to log in. So that's one of the ways that you can do. And when you log in, it'll drop you here. The other way is and this is how I usually do it, is I just go to new.myzap.com, which I've got highlighted there. If you go to new.myzap.com, and then the username and password will be exactly the same as what you use to log into 21 Online. So if you ever change your username or password for 21 Online, it will automatically change for Zap as well. So that's the good news, is you don't have to remember a separate username or password. So you can either log in once to 21 Online, click on, go through those extra steps, or for me, I just have it saved. I go to new.myzap.com, boom, it lands me here. All right, so this is the dashboard here. So when you first log in, now again, if you guys have questions, feel free to either unmute yourself, or if you want to throw something in the chat box is fine as well, which actually is probably a good reminder for me right now for you guys to please put your first name and last name in the chat box so that I know who is here in the class. I would appreciate that. All right. So let's go through and talk about this. So it lands you onto the dashboard. So we're going to go through and we're going to talk about here on this dashboard, and I'm going to explain these things to you. But ultimately, what I'm really wanting you to be able to see as we go through this is how to get it set up and how you can use this to actually generate and make some money from this site, which is, I'm assuming, probably why you're here and what you wanted to learn anyway, right? So, all right, let me just run through the dashboard real quick. Once we have run through the dashboard and you understand what the dashboard looks like and everything and what each of these pieces are, then I'm going to go through and show you how to get your website through Zap set up. And then also what we will do is then I'll show you how to get your contacts into the system and then what to do once you have them in there. So the idea of today is more of just kind of more the basics of it. We'll do a more advanced class later on, which there's not a whole lot more to when I say an advanced class beyond what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to give you the majority, and really everything I'm going to give you today will be sufficient really probably to get you really rolling. All right. So the dashboard, when you first land on the dashboard, now you won't have this agent admin thing. Because I'm an admin, I have the option of bouncing back and forth. But up here at the top, you can see it's got requests, new leads, meetings, reminders, and updates due. So the idea of this is if somebody goes on your site and was to request some information, that's where it's going to show up when you log in that you have a request. If you have somebody that newly signs up on your site, it'd show under the new leads. If you have a meeting scheduled in there, it'll show up there. You can see I've got one reminder, which is down here, and then updates due. So let me explain the updates due section of this. So the company uses this system for any company leads that come in as well. And so what will happen is, and I always kind of get myself in trouble for talking about this because it's going to get you guys excited, and then there may not be room for what I'm going to talk about. So you get excited about it and want to do it, and then you're told, well, sorry, there's not room right now. But it's still helpful for you to know. So the company generates company-generated leads, and we have what is called an E-team. So the E-team, the idea of that is a group of agents that are going to take the internet leads that come into the company and then try to convert those obviously into transactions. So what this updates due section is if you end up on the E-team, which again, as I was saying before on this, I want to just make sure I'm clear on it. Like you can talk to your manager about it and they can find out. It's a scenario where, like I said, there's a small team of agents that work those, and there's some criteria that typically you've got to have been licensed, done a number of deals, that kind of stuff before you can get onto that team. But once you're on that team, then you will periodically get internet leads from the company. And as part of being able to continue getting those leads, you have to do periodic updates, which is where it would show up here telling you, hey, you've got an update that's due. So that's what that section is about. This reminder section, as I mentioned, is just as you put people in here, you can set reminders. So you can see I've got in here, this is my wife in here, I pretty much only use this as a training account. But you can see I've got my wife in here, and then I've got a reminder that was for over a year ago to call her and see why she didn't give me a review, which we'll talk more about the reviews in a little bit. But so any reminders that you have are going to show up there to where I could then click on her name and go in and work with it, or I can click on these actions and make a call, send an email, add a note, or check it off as being done. Okay. And then down here is Zap News, which I've never actually really looked at, but this, I guess, is just, you can go see March, April, May, or I don't know, it wasn't one May, a June Zap updates, which is just going to tell you kind of what they're doing, which is probably a good point for me to share with you. This is something that Century 21 is putting a lot of time and resources into. And so I'm assuming this is still happening. But what will happen with this is every 2 weeks, they are doing updates to this system. So periodically, I'll go in and be teaching this class, and I'll come across something I've never seen before because they're doing updates. So, all right, so Skip's asking C21 lead cost. Great question. And I'm going to give you what I remember, Skip, but I'm not 100% sure that I am correct on this. But I believe it is a 40% referral fee. So if you end up on that E team taking those leads, it is, I believe, a 40% referral fee. And then I think your split gets capped, but that one I probably better not say because I'm not exactly sure what it is. But basically, yeah, there's a pretty big cost to getting those leads through the company. And like I say, it's a 40% referral fee plus a cap on your split. And I don't remember for sure what that cap is, but it can't, whatever your split is what it would be unless you happen to be higher. So probably here's the best way to explain it is even on one of these internet leads, if you had capped, meaning you'd already paid the company, so you'd gone to the essentially 100% split, minus the franchise fee, you don't get to do that on these leads there. And I want to say it's like at 80% or something, but I'm not 100% sure. So anyway, hopefully that answers the question, Skip. All right, so that's the dashboard. Now what we're going to do now is I'm going to jump in and explain to you and show you how to get your site set up and rocking and rolling. So what you're going to do is you should have up at the top right here is your name and your picture. And if your picture's not there, that's okay, but it should have your name there. You're going to click on that. And then you can see I've got this proxy as user, which you're not going to have. I have the ability, because I'm an admin, to go in and look at your account. I can't do anything with it but look at it. So if you ever have any issues or questions on Zap, you can call me and then I can go in and proxy as you to be able to look and see what you're seeing. But I can't make any of the changes. You would have to do that. All right, so where we're going to go, though, is this My Website. So if you go again, so you're clicking on your name, you go to My Website. This is going to load for you to see what your website looks like. Now, so I know we've got people from California on as well. All of the Utah people, this is what your picture is going to look like, the default for your cover photo. And for California, all of you guys have the same one as a default as well, which is the picture of the inside of a house, which looks really good. So you can see this picture looks good. The one in California actually looks really good as well. And so on this, if you wanted to change it, you could click here and change that cover photo. If you don't have a photo or want to add one or change it, you can do that down here, clicking this plus sign, or to edit it. If it's the one that's in there, you can change there. And then you'll notice it's got my name and phone number and view my website. So I'm going to click on that to open it up so you can see what the website. So this is what anybody that is in Utah, your website's going to look just like this. California, like I say, it's going to look the same, only the picture on the back, this cover photo's going to be different, obviously, because you wouldn't want necessarily to be seeing the picture for Salt Lake. So that's what the website's going to look like. So I'm going to bounce back to this tab here. So everything that is, oops, sorry, I should have stayed here. So everything that is on here is what we're going to be talking about, is how to control all of this, which I know I scrolled fast, but you'll get to see it more here in a second. So what we're going to do then is we're going to work on this, creating our site and getting it set up. But before we do that, point out a couple of other things. So the first thing is, here is your website URL. So you'll notice here that the URL for it is homesforsale.centuryone.com/agent/russell.orchard@ and then it continues to go on and you can't even see the end of it. You probably don't want to put that on your business card. And so here's what I recommend to do instead for that is, if you will go to like GoDaddy or any of the domain registrars and you can purchase a domain. So if I were to go to russorchard.com, which is the one that I have purchased, and I put it in, you'll notice now up here. So if I go back on this one, you can see it's homesforsale.century21.com/century21 Everest. Look how long that is. Like, you don't want that on your business card. So instead, I went and bought the domain of russorchard.com. So you could go buy whatever one you wanted, that, you know, your name, you could put it, you know, your name, Russ sells real estate, Russ's website. I mean, like, whatever you want to call it. Go purchase a domain. And then just so you guys know, in case you're not very familiar with that, it is very inexpensive to do that. In fact, you're probably looking at less than $15 per year, not per month, per year. So to own your own domain name, you can get it, and it's going to be less than $15 per year, unless you tried to go buy one that somebody owns and is trying to sell for thousands of dollars. But for the most part, you're going to be able to come up with one that you're going to be able to get it and keep that for, you know, $15 a year or even less. And usually $11 or $12 a year is kind of where it's at. So you can see I bought russorchard.com. That way I can just tell people, hey, if you want to go to my website, or I can put on my business cards, any marketing, I can just put russorchard.com on there and it drops them to there. And you can see it's the exact same site. The only thing that changes up here is the URL. So that's one of the things that I would recommend for you guys to do, because you don't want to advertise this long website link here. So that's that. If you were wanting to paste that somewhere, you can click copy here. Now, the other thing that you have as well with this, just so that you're aware, is you have a mobile app that you can tell people is your app, although it looks exactly like Century 21's app, and in fact it is Century 21's app. But if you will use this link to send to them, then what will happen is when you send that link to them and they click on it, it will download the Century 21 app, but it's downloading a version of that app that is linked to you. And the benefit of why you want to do that is because when somebody then downloads your app and they start searching for properties and they request information or they want more information on a property, it's now going to send that right to you. So where we talked about back there on the dashboard about requests coming in and things, if somebody is on your mobile app and they say, hey, I want information on this property, or I want to see this property, it's now going to send that request to you. So that's the good news. So not only does Century 21 going to provide you with a website, but you can tell people, hey, I've got my own app as well. Now, like I said, it's going to look like Century 21's. And if somebody were to just go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and download Century 21's app, it's the same app. But you don't want them to just go to the App Store or the Google Play Store, because if they do that, it is not tied to you, and who knows where that request is going to go, because it's probably not coming to you at that point. So hopefully that makes sense. You want to make sure you send people this. So I would text them this link so that they're on their phone, or at least if you send it to email, ask them to be on their phone when they go into it and click on the link, because then it will download the app for you. All right, cool. Any questions so far? Let me just check the chat box here. I don't think so. Nope. Okay, good. All right, next piece then. So now we're going to talk about designing the website. And for the most part, really, I could make this basically as simple as just saying, go to each one of these sections, you know, the content section, this area served, the My Home Sold, Agents Insights. You know, I could just say it's that simple. And for most of you guys, it really probably is that simple. I'm going to hit on a few extra things, and specifically the only reason I'm going to go and talk about a few of the extra things is not because you couldn't figure it out on your own, because truthfully, honestly, it's a matter of clicking the pencil in each of these sections and filling it out. but I want to give you some, like, here's how to make it a little bit more effective and work better for you. So here we go. So the first is that's on this content section. It's got this about me page. So let me show you where that shows up. On the website, it's going to show up right here, whatever you type in there. But, and like I said, you can see I'm not really using this. I just use this for training. I'm not actually trying to generate leads with this website or anything. So I haven't put a whole lot in there, but you can see what you would want to do is go into that section, and you want to put your information in there. Now, one of the things that is recommended is to put some information in there that would also potentially be searchable on Google. And in fact, let me actually speak to that real quick. When we first rolled this system out, which was probably 3 years ago now, might even be 4, but I think 3 years ago, Century 21 came and trained us on it. And at the training, they kept talking about being searchable on Google, being searchable on Google. And part of what I guess I want you guys to understand is that, yes, if you really know what you're doing, you could create your site to be very searchable to Google and things. But what I have kind of learned along the way is an individual agent is going to have a really, really tough time trying to compete with a Zillow or a Realtor.com, and those, meaning just to show up organically on a home search that somebody's going to do. But the way that you could do it, and so this is where I'm saying in this about me section, some of the things you would want to do is if you will put in some like neighborhood specific things about specific areas and neighborhoods is going to give you the best chance, because more than likely somebody going in and doing a search for homes for sale in a certain neighborhood or whatever, you're going to have a better chance that way. But if somebody just goes homes for sale in my area, you're not going to show up organically on that first page. And so just kind of recognize that, even though as I talk about it of making your site more searchable, and there's a lot of resources about that, just kind of recognize that unless you know a lot more about it than the average person, it's probably going to be very difficult to show up organically. All right. So on this about me section, you want to put some information there that is going to be about you, and that, and again, maybe potentially neighborhoods, things like that, that is going to be more specific that somebody may search for. So that's the about me section. This buy a home is, there is a separate page up here that you've got for buy and sell. So you've got pages here. Where you're going to control that is on this buy a home page here. So you can customize the page or turn it off. You can display a banner or not. And then down here is where you're going to put in any text and content. Now, let me speak to that for a minute, because this is where I was saying to you that as you can see, for the most part, it's like you just go through and fill out each of these sections and your website's created. I want to do more than that for you, of helping you to know how to make it more effective. So here's the first piece of that. National Association of Realtors does a survey every single year of home buyers and sellers. On that survey that they do of home buyers and sellers, and specifically let's talk home buyers since we're on the buy a home page. One of the questions they ask them is, what is the first step that you would take in going to buy a home? Now, either unmute yourself or put it in the chat box. This is where I got to get you guys involved, make sure you're still there and not asleep. What do you think the number one thing that people go to the internet, if they're going to search for a home, what do you think the number one thing they're searching for when they go on? And this may be kind of a duh question, but that's okay. What are they searching for? All right, let me get the, so I'm getting area, location, price, location, but yeah, you guys are right on. But what I mean is, but like I said, this is, you're even thinking too deeply on it. Like, be just like, what do you think when they go do a, and I actually already even told you what they are searching for typically. What is the first thing they typically go in there and do a search for? Basically, yeah, just houses, like just homes for sale. Like ultimately that is the most common thing. So when NAR asked on this survey, what do you, when you're going to go search, what is the first thing you search for? And the first thing they said they search for is just houses. They just go look for houses. And like, yeah, Rebecca said, duh. Like I said, that's what I was saying. This is more of a duh question when I ask it. So I get that. But the reason I ask it is because of the follow-up. The question, so the number one most important or most common thing, not important, common, that they go and search for is houses. They go look for homes. But what do you think the number two thing that they look for? And let me tell you, everything you guys have said so far is not the number two thing that they search for. So it's not location, financing, beds, baths, price, any of those. So if they're not searching for about houses for sale, any ideas what they would be searching for? Skip said realtor. Yeah, actually not number two, but that is that is in the top 5 for sure. So I'll give it to you. The number two thing that they go in and search for is the steps in the home buying process. What are the steps that you need to take? Basically, think of it this way. The majority of the people that are out doing a search for about homes are going to fall into one of two categories. Most. Now, I keep in mind, I'm not saying all, but most. Most of them are doing a search, most of the people, the categories they fall into is either number one, they're a first-time home buyer, so they have no clue what to do, or number two, they haven't done it in 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 years, and they don't know what to do. So the second most common thing that people go and search for. Now, I get it as well as I'm saying this. I totally get it. The majority are first just going and looking for houses for sale. But the second most common thing that people said in these surveys that they go and search for is what are the steps that you need to take in the home buying process. So now with that perspective in mind, what do you think would be the best content information that you should put into your website under this buy a home? Either throw it in the chat box or unmute, one way or the other. I'm going to wait a second for you to see what you say.
A flyer that says steps in buying a home.
Yeah, see, I'm full of these duh questions, right? Yeah, ultimately, yeah. What we want to do is what we want to have put in there is what are the steps that are necessary when you're going to be buying a house? So that's what I would recommend to you guys to do. Now, keep in mind, as I said before, that what is going to happen with this is that that people are going to be going and doing searches. And remember I said, you're probably not going to show up competing with a Zillow or Realtor.com based on just houses for sale. That's going to be very difficult. But more likely is if you had some good information in here about the steps that you would want to take in buying a home. So that's what I would recommend you put on that page. So with that in mind, what do you think would be good for the sell a home page? Which this is not actually one of the most common, but for me, and rather than have you answer, because again, it's a duh question, I would just say putting on this page, what are the steps necessary when selling a home? See, now the other reason that I think these two things are good to do, this buy a home and the sell a home information on here, is because what's going to happen is you can then use that as a way as you're prospecting. So if you're out door knocking, you're on the phone, whatever, you could say to, and you come across somebody that's saying, hey, what are the steps that are going to be necessary for me to do in buying a home? What are the steps that I would need to take to sell my house? If you have that created, you can go and just say, hey, I'm going to send you a link to my website, which has all that information on there. So think of it that way, is it's a great way to have some information on there that you could then send people to. All right, the next one is custom pages, which on this one, you can go create other custom pages. So if you had other things that you wanted to do, you would just do new custom page. Whatever you create is then going to show up along right here on those pages. So if you had something else you were wanting to do, that's what you would want to do. All right, next, areas served. So this next section down here is the areas served. This one is an important one as well. What you want to do is take a look at this. Now, by default, you're going to have some cities there, and this kind of changes and is hit and miss, so I never know what's actually really defaulted to yours. But I know for a lot of the people in Utah, it was defaulting that Cedar City was the very first one that would show up here. And I'm trying to remember in California what the default was. I can't remember. I looked at it a while back, but just know that here's the key. you can have up to 21 cities on here. You can see I've got 16 of 21. You can have up to 21 cities on there. Now, what you want to do is just come, and let's say that I wanted to get rid of this West Valley city. I just come hover over it, click the X, and I'd get rid of it. Same with Tooele. Boom, now it's gone. Now to add a new city in, so if I wanted to add other ones, I can just come down here where it says add new city here. So you'll notice when I click on it, it almost doesn't seem like it really worked. I don't know why they didn't make it be like a box, but they didn't. So probably the biggest question I get from agents is, hey, I went to that, but then it wouldn't do anything, because it doesn't look like it's doing anything. It's just the cursor flashing. But if you just start to type, you can see that it then starts to bring up, based on the letters you put in there, different choices. So to where you could come and find this and then click on it and boom, it drops it into the list here. So that's how you're going to do it. And you can have up to 21 of those. So what you want to do is just create the cities you want in there. And then from there, you can reorder them by just dragging and dropping wherever you want them to show up. Okay. Now, so here's how I would recommend that you do it. Is on your website, it's got this areas served section right here. And under this areas served section, it is going to show up, the cities are going to show up in the order that you have them dropped here. So just drop them in the order that you want them to be, that way, and then you'll be good to go. So hopefully that makes sense on the areas served, okay? All right, next is the My Sold Homes. So this section here, you can change the name of it by clicking on this pencil, but decide if you want to display it or not display it. So you can see on mine, here's where it's showing these recently sold homes, and it shows 42 homes sold. Now, here's how that works is, and some of you may just be newer to the company, even though you may have been licensed as an agent, but just kind of so that you know and understand how all this works, is the My Sold Homes is unfortunately only going to show the sold homes that you have done since you have been with Century 21. I wish there was a way for it to pull over every one of your sold homes, but it only pulls up sold homes from since you were with Century 21. So if you're a new agent or newer to the company and have not sold homes, you may want to have this turned off. Or what you do, once you have had a few homes sold, 2 or 3 or even 1, you could do, I guess, is you could come over here and let's say I was a new agent and I just barely sold my first house last month or whatever. What I would probably want to do is come over here and change this to say, my recently home sold in June 2020, something like that. That way you're advertising it that, hey, this was just last month kind of a thing, rather than it looking like, hey, you haven't ever sold a house before. So if you have none, I would just turn it off so that it just doesn't display with nothing up there. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, next is the Agent Insights. Now on Agent Insights, so let me speak to this Agent Insights for a second, and actually the areas served. So I'm going to kind of come back to areas served for a second as we talk about Agent Insights as well. The idea of Agent Insights is for you to go in and put information about properties that you have viewed. So there, you can do that one of 2 ways. One is if I just scroll down here, I'm still in this Agent Insights section, I can click Add Property Insights. And if I click on that Add Property Insights, I can then go and create a property insight for a property. Well, where that's going to show up on your website is down here under, oops, I went too far. Right here, Properties I've Toured. And you can see then it'll have the address of the property. It has whatever information you have put about that property on there. Now, the reason you want to do that, the reason this is important now, is remember that I talked about the Century 21 app, and then also you've got, and I didn't talk about, but century21.com. There are going to be people going on to century21.com and doing searches for properties and things like that. Well, part of what they will do is they will periodically throw in an agent's profile picture and information in with those properties. And the way that they're deciding though is based on the search that the person is doing. And then, so depending on the area the person is searching, and then based on agents who have that area, so that city under these areas served put in there, and then they decide which agent to put there based on who is putting property insights. So really the way you want to tie this together to be able to have it potentially generate some leads for you And now this piece of it is not tied to what we were talking about before, the E-team. This would be leads that would just come to you, no referral fee or anything like that. But what you want to do is make sure you've got the areas served in there. So put in the cities that you're willing to work. Don't put in cities just because, hey, I want to get leads there, if you're not willing to go to that city to work. So make sure you're willing to work there. Then under this Agent Insights, go and put in, and I would say 2 to 3 times a week, if you want to stay relevant on this, 2 to 3 times a week, go and do property insights in those cities on the 2 or 3 properties, or even just 1, but as long as you do it a couple times a week, that's going to keep you relevant to the Century 21 website, so that what they're saying is, hey, let's display this person to show up in people's searches that are searching in that area. Now, what I don't want you to do is feel like, oh, I'm going to get a ton of leads this way. Like I don't even know that I could give you a number. I just know that that's how it works, that it will show up. So you may show up and the person may never click on you or request information from you, but that's your best chance to be able to have that happen, is through the areas served and Agent Insights. All right. The other thing in here is, under this Agent Insights, is local insights. So local insights is going to show up at the very bottom. Oops, too far. Right here. And you can scroll through it and see. I've just set these up typically when I've been in a class teaching. But what you would want to do is, for each of the cities up in the areas served, create some local insights about those cities. So what you would want to do is click on add local insight, go put in fact, let me just do it real quick. I'll click on it so you can see what it looks like. So you would put in a neighborhood, either a city, a neighborhood, or a subdivision. So again, this is where I would say, again, if you can type in neighborhoods, is going to be more searchable for you, but you can do it by cities as well. So let me just put in, since we did West Bountiful, let's see, oops, since that was the one I was looking at there. So if I grab West Bountiful there, now I could put in whatever catchy header up here, put in some comments, I could throw in some tags, and then I just am gonna save that. Once you've done that, then that creates it here on the website like this, so that when they come down here, you could scroll through it. So again, the idea of this is having the areas served, putting in some local insights and doing property insights is going to get you the best chance of getting recommended by Century 21 on their website to other people. All right, the next one, the rest of these I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on. I'm just going to kind of quickly through it. But this SEO playbook. So this is, again, ideas that will help your site to be more searchable. And so you'll see the first one on here is, if you have a domain name, have it forwarded. That's what we were talking about up here, where I had rustorchard.com up here, that's what this is saying. And if you don't know how to do it, just click learn more and it'll show you. It's got the same thing for link building. You can see a bunch of check boxes of things that it recommends to do, tells you what to do on content. So again, this is where it's saying, write rich local insights weekly for cities and neighborhoods you service. Write property insights you've toured a few times each week, which I already told you, and then ask your clients to give you reviews, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then it gives you some social media tips and things to do to make your site more searchable as well. Next one is resources. I'm just going to mention it, but I'm not a big fan of it, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But you can see, if you wanted, and this is probably what I would recommend that you do for this, is under this resources section, I just threw one in as myself as a test. You don't really want to do that. But a friend of mine that does a lot of plumbing work, that he's kind of the guy that I recommend to people, or that if I need anything, is I've just thrown his information on here and his website here. So if somebody goes and clicks on that, it's going to take them over to his website there. So what I would recommend you doing for this, for your SOI, is go through and put in, the name of the company, their website, and then you'll probably I I had plumber in there, you can do other or whatever. And then you can have those saved in there. The idea of that would be, then you could tell your clients, your SOI, hey, if you ever need a recommendation for a plumber, electrician, blah, 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 whatever, you can have them all linked right in there to where people could just go to your website. They know where to click to go and get it. Now, here's what would be the ideal thing to do, is go to those same people and say, hey, if I'm going to recommend you on there, like, what kind of discount can you give to them and or to you, or do they want to pay to advertise on your website? Just those type of things are some ideas there for that resource section. Next one is reviews. This one is important. Now, on this one, what we want to do, this is where we're going to get reviews showing up for us on how good of an agent we are. So what you want to do on this, and those that were in class on Tuesday when I was going through 21 online and I talked about the Real Satisfied, any reviews that get done on Real Satisfied are going to show up over here into your Zap account. So those are tied together. So there's two ways you go about it. One is through Real Satisfied. The other way, which I'll show you once we get into the contact section here in just a little bit, is you can request for your clients, your people, or your SOI that you have in Zap to do reviews on you. So one of the things I would recommend, again, if you're a newer agent, what you would want to do in terms of getting some reviews is, let's say you're prospecting, you come across a buyer that you go out and just show them a house. Ask them if they could do a review on you just based upon that. You don't have to have even sold them the house. Same kind of a thing with in terms of your just people in your SOI that are friends and family. Hey, would you mind writing a review, or somebody you've done business with outside of real estate? Would you mind doing a review for me? Then you can build up the reviews on here, which on your website are going to show up right here, this satisfaction rating, which is important as well. All right. And then the last is this professional information. And professional information, same thing, you can put information about your experience, your credentials, and memberships, and any community involvement. You can see I just put in a bunch of gibberish. And then I guess actually technically the last thing is this website tracking, which if you understand what I'm about to say, you'll know what to do. If you don't understand what I'm about to say, then just don't worry about it. But this is where you could get your tracking ID from Google and drop it in there, or the Pixel, Facebook Pixels, and drop it in there to track any of those type of things. So like I said, if you don't understand what I just said, don't worry about it. If you do understand, you'll know what to do, and I don't need to say anything else. So that's how you're going to get your website set up, so that when you come over to here, it will look, somewhat like this. Although, like I said, I just threw in my experience credentials. Like, you would actually put information in there. And then as you come across properties like this one, you would want to see that it's now off market. On that, you would want to go back to the agent insights here on the property insights and go find that property. I don't remember which one it was, and just delete it out of there. So you can delete those periodically as well. So as you go in and weekly are doing property insights, delete the ones that no longer apply anymore. And then that way it'll show up there. All right. So that's how we set up the website. The other things that are in here that you can take a look at later on, which, but really I want to spend more time on some other things. But like I say, is this account settings. You can come click on that and you can see, you can link it to your Gmail. This is where you can set up your email signature for out of here. You can tie it to your MLS memberships, which I don't even know what the purpose of this does, because like I said, it's not grabbing the sold properties from there. So I don't really know what the purpose of that is. And then you can see the lead zip codes and all that kind of stuff as well. All right, let me see. Somebody's got a question. Yeah, Skip, exactly. Okay to preview homes online and enter insights? Absolutely. That's exactly what I would say is, like, you don't actually have to go out and look at the property. You could do it from there. But while you are out there, and I'll talk more about this in a little bit, but there is a Zap app that you can download to your phone where you could, if you are out showing properties, you could actually do the agent insights right there from your phone out of the Zap app while you're at the property as well. All right, lead notification settings. Let me just hit on this one real quick, but this is where you just verify your phone number, email address. This routing email, the purpose of that routing email is if you had leads that you were generating from some other site, like let's say Zillow or something like that, that you were generating, and you wanted those leads to go into your Zap account, you could provide this email address to the whatever company is doing your other site. And if you give them this address, it would route it and drop the leads into Zap as well. Here's where you can turn on to be notified by text or to receive leads, and when you're on to be available to receive. Yeah, go ahead.
I've noticed I do not have that email routing because I've looked for it because I
you don't?
want to right.
You know what I'm guessing then? I'm guessing that I just assumed that was there for everyone, but I'm guessing it's because I'm an administrator that I have it then. So
okay. Darn it.
Thank you for pointing that
Okay.
out. I will quit telling people that that's available because,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Okay. So down here is just, you can put the times you would be available for the system for Zap to call you. This is the manual. When you manually put somebody into Zap, this is the default message that would go out to them. Do you want to have it auto welcome email to any new leads? If you have a team, you could set it up to share leads with your team. And then here's where you decide what emails and notifications you want to get and how. So occasionally, let me just speak to this real quick, and then we're going to get into putting people into the system. So on this one, occasionally I will have people go, man, I'm sick of all the emails that I get from Zap. And let's see, Isabel. Yeah, I apologize. I am going kind of fast. And if you have questions, please slow me down and stop me. But yes, this is being recorded and I will have it available. So if you want to get the recording of this, it'll probably be later today or tomorrow before it shows up there. But in fact, let me just throw it in here. If you go to youtube.com and search for Peak Agent Training, you'll find my YouTube channel for all Peak Agent trainings will show up there. So all of them will always be there either later the day of the class or the next day, just depending on what I've got going on. But so yeah, you can always go back and grab these again and watch that. In fact, there are videos there currently as well. So
Yeah, I'll just throw out there, I've watched it and it's so much helpful because you can press pause, write your notes, rewind, press play, so I highly encourage watching the recorded ones. Right.
Yeah, cool.
I actually have the routing email bar on mine.
Oh, that's good to know. So maybe I have an issue.
So it's something with Yvette's. Okay, well, I'll take a look at yours too, Yvette, and see. So you do have it though, Brianna?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I would use the contacts, that's all.
I know, yeah, you've got that, you just don't have the other, right? So.
Yeah.
Lucky. Yeah, I'd use it. So I'd like to
Actually,
know.
she's not so lucky. She can't edit any of her contacts, so.
Yeah.
Which we're working on.
Thanks.
All right. So down here on this, occasionally people will say, I'm getting too many emails from Zap. If you are getting a ton of emails and you're feeling like you're overwhelmed, this is where you can control that. So this is where you would just decide which ones you wanted turned on and off. And so mine are all on. If you wanted it off, you just come and click this to turn it off, okay? So that's what all of that lead and notification settings. All right, so let's get into contacts now, because this is the fun part for me. And this is the part that I think is going to be the most helpful. So adding contacts, there's 3 different ways you could go about adding contacts. And actually, I guess there's technically maybe a 4th way, but let's go through and talk about how to add them. So up here, you've got this add button. So from anywhere in the system, you can click on that add. And from there, you can see that I've got new contacts and that I could add from here. I could add agent insights from here. So property or local. I could add a meeting. I can add a reminder. If I've got a shareable link or something that I want to do. And actually, I haven't seen this one, but record activities. I don't even know what that does. Let me see what that does. Oh, okay. I know what that is. So that's going to be that RE scoreboard that we talked about it from 21 Online. So if you're doing a class through 21 Online or through Century 21 University and you had to track your stuff, that's where that would take place. All right, but let's talk about the contacts. So you're going to do add new contact. The first way we're going to get them in is just individually. So if I go to add individual contact, you can see here, I could type in first name, last name, email address, phone number, and then I can add addresses, lead information, birthdays, anniversaries, notes, professional information, social media stuff, property interest, who their partner is. I can add any of those things in. And then I would just click add and it will add them into the system. So that's the first way, is just go do them individually. The second way up here is I can do import contacts. Now, in terms of importing, which I guess technically there's only 2 ways. You either add them individually or you import, but there's potentially 3 ways you could go about importing them. And 2 of them are here, and I'll show you the other one in a second. So the first way is you could just upload a CSV file. So if you had all of your contacts in a CSV file, and here's a sample one that you can get, then what you would do is you would just come click, you would fill it out on the CSV file. You're going to click upload, and then it's going to bring up these. And I've got some sample ones here just so I can show you. So let me click on this sample one and I say, okay. So now it's showing that it's got that file ready to be imported. I come down here and hit import. Then what it's going to do is, you can see it would have all of the people listed here. And then I can just say, like, if really his first name was Zap and last name was John, I could come and change that to last name, change this to first name, which you notice as soon as I do that, it's like, whoa, you can't have two columns the same. So it's fixed this one to be nothing. So you would just go through and just say, is this the email? And is it email 1 or 2? And just go across here what each of the columns are and drop those in there. And then once you've done that, you would just come down here and click the import button, and it'll then import the people in. So that's the second way you could do it. The third is, if you have your contacts in Google, you could import them from your Google contacts here. So you could just go and click import Google contacts, and then it's going to have you give permission in Google to access it, and then it would bring your contacts in. And then the third way you can import, which, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute so I can show you this a little easier. If you go onto your phone and you go to the App Store, you can download the Zap app, which is going to look like, let me see if I can get it to where you guys can see it there. Right there, that is the Zap app. It's going to look like that. It's kind of that blue-green color that says Zap. So once you have gotten that app, you're going to log into it the exact same way that you would log into, oops, hitting the wrong one here. You're going to log into it using the same username and password that you would use to log in. And then it's going to bring you into the Zap app, and you'll see like this. So on mine, if you're using the iPhone, you can see there's a plus sign. Oops, maybe not. What happened? You can see this plus sign right there. You just click on that plus sign right there. And once I do that, then it brings up and it says import contacts. So if I hit import contacts, it's then going to ask you for permission to access your contacts. And then from there, it's going to bring up your contacts to where you could just go through and you can select them. So you can see the little dot off to the side there. You click on that dot, and then you would just hit import, and it'll bring them right from your phone into Zap. Now, if you're using a Droid, the process is very similar. Just here's the difference. The first thing you do with your Droid is take it and throw it against a brick wall. Then once it's broken, you go and buy an iPhone, and then you do it the way I showed you. I'm joking. If you're doing it on the Droid, the way you're going to do it is you're going to first go into, I know I'm going to offend people with that one, but you're going to first go into the app, the Zap app, and then on the Droid, how you're going to do it is, the only difference is down at the bottom, and the Droid's going to have the same kind of a thing. You have to click contacts there, which hopefully you could see that there. Yeah, contacts. And then on the Droid, down in the bottom right, so on the Apple, it's top left. On the Droid bottom right, you're going to hit the plus sign, and then everything else works the same exact way to import from there. All right. Oops, let me get back to my screen share here. All right, so from there, now that I have done that, what's going to happen then is if I click over here on contacts, which you can see it says that I've got 56.2 thousand, which is not true. Because I'm an admin, I can see how many are in the system. So, but right here it shows I've got 128. And the majority of these I put in all through my phone like we had talked about. So I'm going to explain what some of this means. So you will notice on here that we have this Zap Score. Remember I said that Realogy paid $167 million to purchase this system, and they were really buying the Zap system. They were not wanting to necessarily buy the website. Well, here's why, is because of this Zap Score. So the Zap Score is going to rate the people, and here's the key on this. It rates them relative to who you have in your system. So what it's going to do is so it's looking at all of mine, and it's saying, okay, of all the people, these 128 that I have in here, these two are very high, And then the rest of these are rated as none. And I'll explain what none means in just a minute. But essentially what it means, see, and I could click on any of these headers here and I can resort it. So if I wanted to search based on the last login, I can do it that way, which will show like the last time that people had logged into the system. Or I usually just leave it as defaulted on this Zap Score here. And the reason being is basically think of it this way, is what this system will do is going to take all of the people you have in there and it's going to rate them relative to everyone else. And if you sort it based on this Zap Score, it's going to rate them relative to everybody else of who is the most likely to be buying or selling. So let me see if I can go in and do a sync here of, trying to think of an agent that I know that's going to have a bunch of things in there. Let's see. I don't know if he will or not. Let's see. Yeah, that one's not working. All right. I had one agent that I used to show his site all the time, but he actually just left the company this week. And I didn't think about who else I could pull up to show. But what will happen though, so I'll just explain it to you, which will work. So on mine, you can see it's just showing very high. The other options is high, medium, low, and none. And what happens then is it's rating them relative to everyone else. Well, the reason these ones are showing as none is because they've done nothing on the site. Now some of these though, you can see did a few things, but it's been so long on it that they aren't showing up anymore. Well, what will happen though is once you get over 99 people who have participated on the site, so you can see a lot of these are not, even though I've got 128. Once you have 99 that have participated on the site, it changes from ranking them as high, very high, medium, low, that kind of stuff. And it's going to rank them from 1 to 99. So if you had 200 people in there, you'll have 2 people rated as 99, 2 as 98, 2 as 97, all the way down. If you had 300, you'll have 3 ranked as 99. What the system is going to do is it keeps track of, are they opening your emails? Are they looking at properties? Are they requesting information and all that kind of stuff? And then what it'll do based on that is then it's going to show you in this. So if I look at, this is a friend of mine here that I had put in here. So if I hover over this, you can see he logged onto the website 4 times 2 weeks ago, viewed 2 home detail pages 2 weeks ago, logged onto the website 3 times 3 weeks ago, and viewed 1 home details page 3 weeks ago. Now, I'll tell you what I'm doing to get him to do that in just a minute. But as I said, it's not like I'm doing a ton with this because I just am using it for training with you guys. But if you get a lot of people doing stuff, it'll really start to get some good activity going on it to where you'll come on here and see people doing a ton of things. So, but let me back up. I just realized I forgot one thing. Once you put the people in here, so if you've imported them from your Google Contacts or your phone, or even just done an import of them through the CSV, once you have them in here, you want to come and select all. And then from here, there's these bulk actions. You want to share website with them. So let me tell you why I think a lot of these people have not responded on mine, because here's what happened. So the first time I had imported all these people, I came in here, I did that. I went to bulk actions. I did share website. It brings it up to show you, here's the message that's going to go out. This is what the message is going to look like. And then I clicked send email. When I clicked on that send email, it didn't do anything. So I clicked send email again, and it didn't do anything. So I clicked send email again, and it still didn't do anything. So I clicked send email again. Well, I ended up clicking it 8 times. And then actually this Jay Despain right here, this guy that you're seeing right here, he ended up texting me and said, I think your email has been hacked. I just got 8 emails from you all at once that were the exact same thing. And unfortunately, my email had not been hacked. I was just an idiot and kept hitting send on that. Now, luckily, I have only heard of that happening one other time. Most of the time, it's not happening for people. So if you come into this and I were to, let me just grab one other one here like this, and I go to bulk actions, share website. So I'm going to share it with these 3 people and see if I could get them to engage. Once you click send email, it should give you this box. Well, for me, it didn't do that, like I said. So if you click on send email and it does not bring you to this, I would err on the side of it sent the email, and don't keep clicking it like I did. Like I said, I've only heard of one other person that's had that issue. Every other time it has worked just like you just saw there, where it just actually sends it to the person, and that's it. So that way you've shared it with them. Hopefully they click on the sign in button, which will then give them access, and then it'll start to rate them like we said. So really your ideal thing would do is get the people put in there, make a phone call to them and say, hey, I'm going to share my website with you so that you'll have access to it. Now, the other thing that I would recommend doing, especially with people who you think are going to be doing real estate at some point down the road, is same kind of a thing. Do a share with them and share the mobile app as well. But again, on that one, I recommend talking to them and saying, hey, I'm going to share with you, I'm going to send an email to you, or you could do it as a text, although you'd have to do it outside of this. But I'm going to send an email to you. Make sure you're checking it on your phone so you can download my app, so that if you want to look at properties, you can just use my app, and that way you don't have other agents bugging you about trying to get you to buy a house for them. So hopefully that makes sense on those contacts. Is you want to get them put into here, select them, go to bulk actions, share website, and I would also recommend do share the mobile app as well from there. All right. Now, let me go into Jay here, and I'll show you what I'm doing to get him to engage. So the first thing that I want you to see up here is, now that I'm in his contact information, if I made a phone call to him, I could log that phone call by clicking this, which is going to bring up to where I could type in my notes and all that kind of stuff. And for some reason, oh, there we go. So you can have call scripts in here. You could have multiple phone numbers that you would choose which one. Did you reach them? Yes or no? And you're going to throw in your notes there, and then you would save. Same thing with an email. It would just bring it up to where I could type in an email and send it out. I can add a reminder to call him if I want and set a date to it, and it's tied to him as a contact. And you can even have it repeating. So if you wanted to have repeating ones, so just saying once a month or at once a quarter, however you want to do it, is you can do that. And then from here, I could add a note. If you're a team, you could share it with your team. You could sign in as the contact, which I'll say more about that in a minute. And here's where I could ask him for the review. So this is where I was saying, once you get contacts in there, go ask them to do a review. Call them, say, hey, I'm going to send you an email that first just gives you access to my site. Or maybe you even just call them and say, hey, would you be willing to do a review for me? They're going to say yes. Great. I'm going to send you an email first that gives you access to my site. That way they go in and click on your site so that they'll get there. Then say, and I'm going to send you one that asks for a review as well. And then you can share your mobile app as well there. All right. That's the top piece. So the rest of this, again, is I could get to the Zap Score, which I'll explain. I can jump to any of these if I just click up here, or I can scroll. But I want to explain this basic information first. So under the basic info here, these ones are automatically system tags that have put in here. This one is one I created. So if you wanted to have if you want to be able to search contacts based on certain things, you can create as many tags as you want. So I'm just going to come up here and say SOI and click add, and you can see now it's created a tag that's SOI. That way, if I'm back here, I'm going to go back to my searches here. If I wanted to filter these 128 contacts to see only people that are in my SOI, I can come to this custom tag section, scroll down here, hit SOI, see filter, oops, sorry, no, that's not it. And boom, you can see there, I've only got one person in here, and Jay has shown up. So that's how I can filter those. And let me go back to him. And you can create as many filters as you want for the people. So he's my neighbor, but I'm also put him as an SOI. Let's say that I also wanted to put that he's really tall. So I could put it that way, you know, if I wanted to do a search for all my tall friends, whatever, I could do that, okay? So you can create as many tags as you want, and you just put them in there and do that. Once you have created one, then it will allow you to just add more people to it. Here's where I can keep track of his contact information, his phone number, email address. If I want to add a reminder again, I could do it up here, or I could do it here. You can see his last login was July 1st, and the last contact I had with him was October, and I added him in 2018. As I keep scrolling down, you can see the rest of the information that's in here. But now I go to Zap Score. So again, I can either scroll to Zap Score, I can click on it, and it'll take me here. So under this Zap Score, you can see with him, he hasn't done a whole lot. There could be like 5, 6, 7, 8 different things here based on what he is doing and how he's engaging with the site. But if I hover over it, you can see it shows that in the last 7 days, he hasn't logged in. The last 14 days, he didn't, but between 14 and 21 days, 20 days, he logged in 4 times. And between 21 and 27 days, he logged in 3 times to it. And then over here, you can see on those same times, he viewed 2 home details pages the first time and 1 home details page the next time. So this will show me what he is doing to engage with the system. And this is where it'll show you if he's doing stuff on my mobile app, if he's doing it here, is he requesting showings, any of that stuff is going to keep track there. And then down here is the search insights. So you can see that it's showing like the average property he's looked at is 430,000, 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, 2,900 square feet. And you can see it says all of the properties he looked at were in West Jordan. So same thing with this, it'll have multiple colors if they're checking in multiple cities, and it'll show you the percentage of properties in each city that they are looking at. So you can keep track of it. All right, down here is search activity. This is where I can see how many homes have they saved, what are the searches they've saved, if any, and what are the homes that they viewed. So if I click on that recently viewed, it'll bring it up till I can see here's the 2 different properties that he viewed. And that way I at least know. Down here now is going to be the campaign section. And this is where this is where I would cover in a more advanced class, so I'm not going to hit on it too much here. But you can go and set up reminders as part of the campaign. So remember, I could do it here, I could do it here, I could do it in that other place, up at the top here in the basic info. So there's tons of places I can do that. And as I scroll down under the campaigns, there's a listing activity. So if I had listed the property, it would show up here. And I guess that's where tying it to your MLS ID would come into play, is if you have active listings, it can show up there. But the home values updates. Okay, I know I've been going fast and giving you a ton of information, but it's time to wake up and make sure you're paying attention to what I'm going to share with you now, because this is going to be the piece. If you will do this, this is going to generate more income for you than anything else that I'm going to teach you about the Zap system. So make sure you're awake, paying attention. If people have dropped off, then they missed out and they're going to not get the money. So here we go. All right, home value updates. Let me explain what that is. So I had a time about 20 years ago that a sales guy came to our real estate office trying to sell us a software program. And when he did that, what he told us is he said, I'm going to give you the best idea to generate, or excuse me, as far as marketing to your sphere of influence, and none of you are going to do it. Well, as soon as I heard that, I was like, I am going to do it. And then he laid out this idea, which essentially is this home value updates. It's not exactly the same, but it's pretty close. He laid out this idea and I said, I'm doing it. And I did what he said. And I will tell you, was the best marketing idea you could ever do to your sphere of influence. So here's what I have done for Jay. So you saw that Jay had logged in the last, out of what, 4 weeks, he had logged in twice out of 4 weeks. Well, the way that I'm getting him to do that is I went and set him up on this home value update. And so what you want to do once you get people in here is you come down here and click on add home value update, type in their home address, which you can see is what I did here for him. And then once you type it in, you're just going to save it. Now, what it's going to do then, and you could create more than one, just like you can see here, I could add another one to him if I wanted to. So if he owned investment properties, I could do it for the areas that he has investment properties. But you want to go in and put in their home address or wherever address they're interested in. Now, what this is going to do, this home value updates, what it's going to do is it's going to, once a week, it will do a 2-mile radius search that it's going to look for the 5 closest homes for sale to his house. So it does a 2-mile radius search to find 5 houses. The 5 closest, so if there was 20, it's going to find the 5 closest. If there's only 3, it's going to send 3 in that 2-mile radius. But it's going to look to send 5 properties in that 2-mile radius that it's going to then send to Jay an email of, here are the 5 properties closest to your home for sale right now. Now it's going to look for that weekly, but here's what I've found. So Jay actually lives in my neighborhood. And so I have myself set up on this as well, which I would recommend that you do that. Get yourself set up on this home value update. So put yourself in as a lead or a contact into your system, set yourself up on the home value update, just so you can see how it works. Well, what it's going to do is once a week, it's going to go look and see what properties are for sale in that 2-mile radius and what are the 5 closest. If next week it's the same 5 properties, nothing's changed, it won't send an email. That's the reason I'm guessing Jay has not logged in 2 weeks, is because I have sent this to him, but I didn't get an email. So I know he probably didn't either, because the 5 properties didn't change. So if they don't change, it won't send it. But if when it does its search, a new property showed up that's closer than this 5th one, it won't send that 5th one, it'll send the other one. So it's going to send these 5, but it's the 5 closest to him. And as long as those 5 stay the same, he won't get an email, but when it changes, it will send it. So it's going to look to do it once a week, which I wish there was a way on here we could control how often it's going to send the email. But unfortunately, it looks once a week. Here's what I found. This will vary based on the area that you set this up in. Because if there's high turnover in the area, they're probably going to get an email once a week. But if there's not high turnover in the area, for me, I've found I get an email every 2 to 3 weeks. So just kind of keep in mind that that's the way that works. I got somebody asking a question here, I think. Let's see. Skip, unfortunately, good question. Actually, California might have sold information available. I know for Utah that it does not, because we are a non-disclosure state. And so because we are a non-disclosure state, we can't send out the sold. But I would say go set it up on your home. And then if you'll let me know so that I can speak to that in the future on if California includes the sold information or not. But for Utah, it does not include the sold information. So great question.
I have a question just because I'm on here while you're doing it. I'm actually typing in a couple different addresses. I'm on my own, and it won't bring up the address I'm trying to put in.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So that does happen. So here's what I would ask you to do on that, Yvette, if you will, and I've done this a number of times too, you're going to come across some that periodically that happens with. And so if you will call the help desk and say, hey, I can't get this property to come up, will be helpful, because the more of us that so it's same with everybody on here. Every time you find one that won't come up, call the help desk, because there's some glitch in the system and they won't believe me. I've called them so many times and said that won't come up. Now, a lot of times here's the answer they're going to give to you is, well, if the property has never been on an MLS, then it won't come up. But that is not true. And the reason I know that is because my own personal house, I can put in the address and it will come up. And my house has never been on the MLS.
Okay.
Jay's house, this 6443, he had the home built and has never been on the MLS either. So I know that's not the reason it won't come up. I think there's just a glitch. But for some reason, they just keep defaulting to, well, if it hasn't been on the MLS, it won't come up. And so every time I always tell them, well, I've pulled up other ones that haven't been on the MLS. So the more of us that will do that, they'll finally find the glitch, I think, and fix that. So here's my recommendation in the meantime. So if you can't get it to come up, find one of their neighbors' houses and type in the address for a neighbor, because then you can set it up and it'll still come from within their neighborhood. It'll do it that way. The only thing, the only thing you got to make sure you do though is tell them, make sure they know that you're aware that's not their address, but that's the address you had to put in to get it to send to them. Because when the email comes, it says recent activity near, and then it has their home address, which is what causes them to open the email. So you got to make sure you tell the people in your SOI, hey, we got a glitch in the system. For some reason, your address wouldn't come up. So I put one down the street from you, but just know, I know that that's not your address. It's not like I've got your wrong address. It's just the way that I can get in the system to send it to you.
Okay.
And then it'll work.
Thanks.
Yep. Awesome. But here's the thing, guys. I am telling you, if you will do that, here's what I learned. When the guy told me this is the best thing you could ever do, what I learned from that he didn't say, that since then I've realized, is the people in your SOI assume, and it says on their listing provided by, and gives credit to whoever the broker is, but they don't read the fine print. And so they assume you listed those properties. And so what it does is it builds this confidence in those people that you know what you're doing and that you sell every house in their neighborhood, even though they're probably driving by and seeing somebody else's sign out front. Because they get the email, they're assuming you sold the properties. Now, that was a byproduct. That was not the reason he said to do it. The reason you want to do it is it just builds confidence that you're the neighborhood expert. You know what's going on, because they assume that you're putting that together and sending it to them every week of, hey, here's what's going on in your neighborhood. So it creates credibility for you. But the byproduct, the side effect of that is they also then, even though you could tell them, I didn't do this, this is just me providing the information, they still in the back of their mind think, wow, they sell every house in this neighborhood. So that's where I would say is the big thing. All right, last thing that I want to hit on, and then we're going to wrap up here, is new listing alerts. And that is, you can set up new listing alerts for the people as well. So if I wanted to set one up for Jay, so let me explain the difference. This home value updates is going to do a search of every home for sale in a 2-mile radius, and it's going to send to them the 5 closest, regardless of style, square footage, beds, baths, any of that. So that's what home value updates. New listing alerts, if you click on this set one up now, it's going to log me in, and you'll notice I'm signed in as him. So the system thinks that he is signed in right now. I could then go do a search based on a city, neighborhood, a zip code, or whatever, put in the price range that I'm wanting to find properties, the beds, the baths, and then other filters that are here, and hit search. So in fact, actually, let me just do it real quick just to show you what this looks like. Oop. So if I did a search here and just said, oh, well, that works. Okay. So I could filter it down from here. Now, here's the only thing that's confusing is people will go in and do this to set up a search, and then they do this search and they go, where do I save it? I don't know how to save it. And if you look at that, you're like, I don't know how to save this. There's no save button. Well, and I wish they would fix this too, but they haven't. It's recommend a search. So if I click recommend search, essentially you're saving it, but it's really basically just recommending to them, hey, here's a search that I've set up for you. So it does save it and creates that as a search for them so that it'll back here show up as a new listing alert that you've got for them. Now, here's the difference. So remember I said the one is just 2 miles, 5 closest houses. This one, you could put in a certain price range, you can put in style, all those kinds of things, so that it's only going to email to them properties that meet a certain criteria, not just everything in that area. So that's the advantage of this new listing alerts. Typically where I would recommend doing this would be for somebody who's just starting to think about buying a home, is I would go set up a new listing alert for them. All right.
So I had a quick question about that, Russ.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was setting up a new listing alert for some clients of mine, and now with the telecommuting that is becoming so common, my buyers, their search was really large. They were pretty much happy with anywhere on the Wasatch Front, and so it covered several counties. But the widest search I could get on Zap was 25 miles from a particular address or point, and that was with the radius search. Do you know if there's something I was missing there?
No, I've never tried to do that large of an area. So here's what I would probably recommend that you probably will have to do is I would just probably tell them, because it's that big of an area, I'm going to have to go set up multiple searches, and you would just go set up multiple. So one of two things, either do it that way to keep them in Zap if you want, or you could just go to the MLS and set it up that way, because I know you could do a bigger search area on the MLS.
Okay, that is what I ended up doing. I prefer to keep them in Zap, but
Yeah.
I ended up doing it through the MLS. So, okay, thanks.
Cool. Okay. Well, with that, I know I've provided a ton of information to you guys. Any other questions, anything specific that you want me to hit on? There are a few other things that are more advanced, but like I say, we'll do a different class for that. All right, I'm going to assume that you're good then. Well, thank you for being on here. The biggest thing I would say is just jump in and start playing around with the system. Like, you're not going to hurt anything. Start getting people in there. And I'm telling you, if you don't remember anything else we talked about, get people in there and get them set up on the home value updates for your SOI, because it'll create you as the market expert. And next thing you know, they're calling you to help sell their house or to go find something. So awesome. Thanks for being here, guys. I will talk with you later. As far as peak agent classes next week, I was actually scheduled to be out of the office. And so we don't have any formal classes scheduled. I do have on the schedule for next Tuesday to do some live calls or a virtual call around. So the idea of that for the peak agent is going to be, we'll just jump on and I'll listen to you guys make some calls. So for Tuesday, have some phone numbers available that you can jump on to a Zoom and make some phone calls. And I'll coach you on what you're saying and how to do it a little bit better.
Sounds good.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Thanks, Russ.
Yep.